Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, justice.
Okay, any changes to the agenda this evening? Seeing no changes,
Make a motion, we approve the September 24th, 2024 agenda.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
The public participation policy applies to all selectmen meetings. A copy of this is in the back of each agenda, posted outside this meeting room and on our website. Our public hearing will be at 6:05, so I will skip right now to public input for 3 minutes on agenda items only. Seeing no one? Any appointments this evening?
No.
Okay, do we have enough time? If we go into old business, okay, Police Department, New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety Grant Approval.
So this is Office of Highway Safety Grant for federal fiscal year 25. We've been doing this every year since I think 2008. So we were awarded $10,200, which has been our standing award for the last couple of years. And basically, I'm looking for the authorization to enter into that contract with those folks. These supply funds for assorted enforcement grants for DWI, speed, distracted driving that we've been doing for a number of years. And so looking for you to approve it, but also if you would, for the motion, if you could
Yes.
authorize Ryan to sign the contract.
One question I had, and I don't know if this has been through every time that we go through this, the seatbelt requirements, is that strictly for under 18?
Correct. And that's what they call a mobilization. So
Mobilization?
yeah, so they set parameters for us to participate in those particular ones. So they break it down. It's page 25 in the grant contract, and it shows the award amounts. So that's one of the smaller ones that we do, but it is focused on people under 18.
Under 18, that's what I thought. And I just wanted to make sure of that. And also, this doesn't have anything in any way, any ruling on helmets for motorcycles.
No, we're not particularly looking for that.
Okay. All right.
Mr.
Any other questions?
Chairman, I move that we accept the grant from the New Hampshire Office of Highway Safety in the amount, if I can find it here, of $10,200 and authorized Town Administrator Ryan Heath to sign the contracts.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, we just have a couple of minutes for the public hearing.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if there's no public input, I would like to just take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Laura Parker, our finance manager, for the effort she made in putting on the seminar earlier this week on budgeting. I found it very helpful, and I found the lunch that she made exceptionally good.
Okay. Okay, we'll open this up to the public hearing at 6:05, acceptance of the one-time FEMA funds.
Chairman, members of the board. Well, last meeting, we had spoke. We had received several FEMA payments in regards to two different declared natural disasters One was in December of 22. And then entering into the July floods of 23. There was some overlap. We had several roads that sustained damage in both floods. So we have been working over the last year, inputting data and repair costs. And then we received a series of 4 different payments, all in regards to the 2 declared emergencies. So tonight, we're asking the board and the public to accept the FEMA funds in the amount of $531,303.74.
Do you have any questions? Okay. We have a motion.
I make a motion.
Can I just ask a
Go
quick
ahead.
question? The costs that these are in theory reimbursing, these have already been expended and would be reflected in the actual and budgeted expense report? Is that
Yes,
correct?
so over the last 2 years, so there was repairs made at the end of 22 during the times of the emergency. Same
December.
thing in 23, we had several months worth of repairs that were expended both out of the operating budget and also out of road reconstruction. So these monies are all under the reimbursement at a 75% level of the total cost that was awarded. So.
Right, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any public input? Seeing no one?
I make a motion, we accept the FEMA funds in the amount of $531,303.74.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, moving right into new business, Halloween trick or treat hours.
Chairman, members of the board, in there's a correspondence between Parks and Rec, Police Department, and myself. Just setting the yearly Halloween trading hours. Say
5 to 7,
5 to 7 on.
10:31.
Yes,
There it is.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the trick or treat hours from 5 to 7 PM on 10/31/2024.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Joint Loss Management Committee Safety Manual Approval.
Good evening.
Evening.
Everybody have time to read this nice, prepared, manual. TA Heath, upon my, appointment, or shortly thereafter, as fire chief asked me to start up the Joint Loss Management Committee for the town.
Mhm.
I've had experience doing that. Part of that process is the town has to have a safety manual on file, and it needs to be reviewed and adopted every 2 years. I believe ours expired back in August, is the date. I know it was the last edited draft was back in March of 22. So, and then adopted formally, I believe it was in August of 22. So that time has come to review. We reviewed it as a joint loss management committee. A lot of it pertains to specifically fire department, public works, just kind of safety manual. We didn't see any need for any revisions or major changes other than some adoption of the dates and whatnot. Everything was still critical or applicable to what we do, various jobs within the town. So I don't know if you had a chance to read it in depth or had any questions on it or anything you would like to see edited, added, redacted.
No, you said it was pretty much the same as last time.
Correct. We went through it.
Briefly went through it,
we-
we kind of went over it.
Okay, yeah.
And it looked pretty similar to what we've had before.
It was,
so.
yep, same manual that was drafted previously. Yeah, a lot of stuff in there. responsibilities of department heads,
Mhm.
town administrator, et cetera, and whatnot, and then how to operate certain pieces of equipment and safeties and guards, and how do we deal with accidents and
And how,
all that fun stuff.
and how often you inspect your equipment.
Correct. Yep.
Are copies of this available to the town employees?
So as soon as this gets adopted, I will send out an electronic version to all the department heads to disseminate to their own employees who I would hope would at least peruse it and know where it's located, at least in the event that they want to read it. So
You will not read it over your lunch hour.
no,
Do you want to approve it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Make a motion, we approve the draft dated 9/11/24 for the Joint Loss Management Committee. Safety manual.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, chief. Very good. 2024 department head budget proposals. Parks and Rec.
Kelly looked eager, right?
You know what number you are?
4520.
You got that? now?
4520. Yep. What's that?
You just switched out the part-time and put it into full-time?
No, what had happened was that there were wages in the cemetery department that were put into this for full-time, and then the part-time was the lifeguards.
Say that again, the wages for the cemetery?
Right, so this position, this administrative assistant position was 7 hours out of the recreation revolving fund, which is a user fee fund. There were 28 hours that were tax dollars or for this budget, and then 5 hours were from the cemetery budget. Because there was work that this person was doing for the cemetery department. And then in 2024, January 1st, the monies were being paid out of the Parks and Recreation Department in anticipation of the change with taking the monies from the cemetery and putting it into Parks and Recreation. And that was the decision of the previous Public Works Director, I believe.
That was a part of the umbrella of DPW. This DPW, the DPW directors took over cemeteries when originally that was sort of
Right,
partly part of recreation, and then we had a separate cemetery sexton at the time too.
yes.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm struggling a little. We have a whole separate section for cemetery. And yet we seem to be blending the costs associated with that across different departments.
Not at this time. I think that's been remedied. It's been cleared up and
So that it's been cut and clear now.
it was proposed in 2024 and that budget was defaulted. So then it went back to 2023, which was the original way. So the monies going forward, I think proposed by Parks and Recreation and Public Works, where that cemetery was reduced to 5 hours per week. And theoretically, that money isn't raised or different, it's just moved from one department to another. And then the biggest reduction was the lifeguard wages. That was the decision of the board to not have lifeguards, and that was a reduction. And the budget is basically the same. There were 4 other line items that were decreased minimally, $2 to $99 range. And everything else is the same except the wages.
And throughout this budget book, Ryan, I'm sure the 2024 numbers are the default budget, right? Not the proposed. budget. Okay, thank you.
So according to the figures that I have, it's approximately $8,196 difference from the previous year's budget, and that's
Mhm.
wages,
That's
Which
all
is-
in wages.
right, which is less than the 10%, which was the wage increase. So we had made some reductions.
So everything else you managed to keep the same?
Yes, or decreased.
Would you like to do all the departments? Bob?
No, I'd be happy to help.
Um. Questions from the board, or would you like to have more time to go over this budget with some of the other budgets? Or would you like to make any decision this evening?
Yeah, I mean, considering that we all just got this
I would like to wait.
17 minutes ago, I think we probably ought to hold off on making any decisions.
Consensus, then the rest of the board feel the same?
Yeah, wait.
It seems reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to email or call, and I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay.
Thank you
Very much. Good job.
Promise to be quick.
Sure,
4220.
that'd be the one, yes.
Again, go ahead. Nope.
I just wanted to preface, just to remind the board, we talked a little bit about it a while back, but just to remind you, so there are new positions with the fire department, but they are not reflected in this budget proposal. We are putting the new positions into a warrant article solely by themselves, so that the taxpayers can make a decision on the new positions separate from the operating budget. There was some confusion last year. We've had a lot of comments from taxpayers that didn't realize that we were going to lose positions or certain aspects when we go to default. They don't know that they were not aware that, you know, obviously that funding and the operating budget was, those new positions were contingent on that funding. So this way, believe, you know, if the board is in agreement with it, that this will provide a better explanation for the taxpayers when they go into the voting booth to see what, if those positions are specific out there, what that costs, and the fact that we need those positions to be able to fully transform into full-time. But also at the same time, try not to reflect a tremendous increase without them really seeing those new positions.
New positions. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
So since it's my first go around here in Alton, I don't know what your flavor is of how you want to go line by line. If you have specific questions, I know, I guess you just received the budget for review not too long ago. Our biggest increase would be under the full-time wage line, and that cost reflects actual wages. The previous, well, this year's budget's obviously default, so that did not reflect potential wages that were increased over last year and drafted in end of 22. And then there were some agreement to wage adjustments that happened in 23 as well. So that number reflects the current full-time staff, what their hourly wages are, including potential for, well, 3 of them with wage adjustments, and then the 4% merits for the other positions. And that's why that one is about a 20% increase. It's kind of the big one.
Okay, it is.
Mhm.
And your holiday pay is an increase, or it was,
Correct. So that was never budgeted out separately. That
Mhm.
was always included in one other line. I believe this year it's coming out of the benefit buyout.
okay,
So even though that was under budgeted for, so that the holiday pay is equivalent to the full-time positions with their buyout at the end of the year for non-salary.
Mhm.
So the full-time firefighter, so that's what that would be budgeted for the 25 end of year.
looks like most of your other line items have either decreased or stayed the same
Correct.
in most cases.
I did a 3-year look back on what was spent. There were a few line items in there that were budgeted for that we hadn't spent any money in. So like reference materials,
Mhm.
the last 3 years had $2,000 just budgeted. And we never purchased any reference materials. I have no plans for any specific reference materials for 25. That's why it was reduced down to $1. Just kind of keep that line item open in the event that we do, but I'm a proponent of budgeting for what we need, not just kind of haphazardly. Not saying that was what happened, but just putting money in a line item just for the sake of it. So I like to have a specific reason as to why we're budgeting for a plan to move forward. And that's why, for the most part, everything was similar or close to or reduced based on the last 2 to 3 years of what we spent out of those particular line items.
Okay, so this new proposed budget, I mean, just to, I guess, put it bluntly, this does allow you to perform all duties and everything with everybody on board
Correct.
in a realistic amount, not selling yourself short.
Not selling ourselves short. So with the anticipation of hopefully the full 4 additional positions to the warrant article. I didn't want to reduce the wage and the shift coverage as of yet, because in the event that that doesn't pass, we still have to have that and as a safety marker. The wage shift coverage did go up about 20,000, and that's in the anticipation of January 1 to town meeting, kind of covering with that per diem person. And then after that, if we get the additional full timers, we can still utilize that as that 3rd person. So just trying to plan and map that out. And then hopefully in 26, we'll have a true idea as to what we would need for full-time versus the part-time per diem on-call wages, and probably reduce that as well.
Is that the overtime line item hadn't changed at all?
That one hadn't. I did add additional overtime into the ambulance revolving out of that budget so that it's not impacted by the taxpayer. We are seeing an increase in medical calls, so we're getting additional revenue. Majority of what we do on the fire department is technically EMS, so trying to utilize that and not drain it completely, but we have a little bit, I feel, a buffer in the ambulance revolving. So there, you'll see throughout the budget, there are some things that are split out. Some 50-50, some 60-40, kind of depending on, the utilization of EMS versus fire, even though we're a singular department.
Okay.
Looking at the full-time wages line item, I mean, that's a 16% increase in 1 year. And so I'm trying to understand that. I know that there was an increase done mid-year last year.
Correct.
And I think we talked about not doing any more increases. And then it looks like you've reflected a 4% for this year.
So 4% for salary people, and then for the, I call it a 250 plan. It was an agreement put in place for a wage adjustment. 2 years ago, there was a request to move the full-time positions up about $5 per position per an hour. And that was split between 23 and 24. However, we went to default budget in 24, so those people were unable, they did not get that 250 wage increase. So that reflects this. Also, some positions were, they were hired at a higher wage than what was budgeted for in that initial 23 request. So hypothetically, a position was budgeted for $22 an hour and that person may have been hired at $28 an hour. So we have to adjust or make that adjustment in the budget. So the 24 request for the wage full-time line was over 500,000, and that was because there were 2 additional full-time people positions in that, but since we went to default, we're operating on the 23 budget technically.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Somewhat. The other question I had
Mhm.
was the dispatch, and it looks like you dropped it here, but you increased it fairly significantly for the ambulance revolving fund.
Correct. Again, there was at the, I believe, the end of last year, we were notified of there was a significant increase from our dispatch agency, Lakes Region Mutual Fire Aid. There was an adjustment, I believe, towards the end of last year into the budget that was kind of already put forward. It's around 100,000. I haven't had any specific notification from them yet if that's staying the same or it's gonna go up. So again, I kind of put more onto the ambulance revolving. We split that out of basically into thirds this year. Fire department operational budget, the ambulance revolving account, they both came out of a revolving, but the ambulance revolving operating budget, if you will, and then the other, so I guess surplus ambulance revolving. So that's how that was paid for this year to make up that significant increase. So it's around 100,000. I put 40,000 out of the fire department operating budget and then the remaining 60 out of the ambulance revolving.
Are you reasonably confident in your overall $100,000 estimate that they'll be close to that?
Yeah, when I first came on, I did have a meeting with the chief of Lakes Region, and they're changing the formula. However, the end result is going to be similar, just the way the algorithm that they're using versus it's a configuration of basically evaluation of your community, call volumes, population, all that, and like just kind of moving parts and pieces. But I feel that it's going to still be around that $96,000 to $100,000.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with this for now to review and at a later date?
I just one more question about the overtime.
Mhm.
The wages, or I know it's still the 20,000 and then we saw it on the ambulance revolving one.
Mhm.
So if that will this one from the fire department will strictly be for the fire department only, and then the ambulance is the one that will have the overrun if it comes to that? Meaning like the ambulance has its own overtime.
It's so basically the shifts they work. We
They
don't
overlap with the
separate.
guys,
Yeah,
right?
it's,
Okay,
it's,
yep, that was my question.
Any other questions?
If you had to pick, Jim, the one category here that you were the most antsy about, what would that be?
Nothing really. I mean,
Pretty
just
confident.
knowing in the last 6 months that I've been here looking at where we're spending and history, again, tighten up a few things here and there and, you know.
You
make
feel
sure we're not
pretty
making-
comfortable with
Yeah.
this budget?
Correct. And then hopefully next year with the additional positions, we can reevaluate budget time to see where we can maybe reduce like the call coming. We're just not seeing the people respond out
Right.
for,
Makes
on
sense.
call or whatnot. Trying to reduce the overtime line.
Yep.
So it's budgeted here, but we spend too much.
All right. Ambulance? 5-9000.
Correct. Same thing, biggest increase you'll see is probably the wages overtime. It's a new line item added in there. Discussion early on with the default budget, knowing where we typically spend for overtime. It was the plan was to kind of utilize ambulance revolving so that we can hopefully stay under the default budget. And then I think it was pretty much.
Yeah, just a couple of
Just a
things.
couple of things, yeah.
Lead
Few
expenses.
things are the same.
Yeah.
Uniforms and
Yep.
stuff.
Did you consider breaking out holiday pay in the ambulance budget as you did in the fire budget, or is that a special?
I did not. Yeah, I had it encompassed into another line item, and then speaking with the finance director, she thought it would be best to put it in its own separate line. Yeah, we can have that discussion if you think it's best that we take a little bit out of ambulance revolving but I'm not opposed to.
A quick review, I'm pretty comfortable with these ones.
Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
Great job as well, chief.
Yes.
I think it's looking pretty good.
Both
Appreciate it.
the fire chief and the police chief, you guys did a great job. And
I
Kelly.
think it's looking good, and then we just need to digest it a little bit more, look at it, and we're just putting eyes on it this evening.
Hey, I understand.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
$42.10.
$42.10.
I'm sorry.
But if you want, I think it's the third page of your packet has the same information, but it gives you just a couple more columns and will actually express the percent change, the dollar change amount. You don't have to do math in your head. So you'll see the bulk of the changes are in the payroll side, again, trying to make up for being on default. I went through and made some adjustments where you see some of the reductions. In my dues and fees, I was able to remove one of the programs Josh has it accounted for in his IT budget. And then we added Tina's joining an Administrative Secretary Association, so that fee was added to it. But still that net reduction of $55. When you go down to contract services, that's that 165. I added a Power DMS module for our accreditation process, as well as a when-to-work scheduling app that we've been using for the last couple of years that I just didn't account for in the budget. And then I was able to remove Guardian tracking from our budget, which is somewhere in $18, $19, I think. That again is accounted for in Josh's IT budget that we were both basically budgeting for and didn't realize that we had. Then you'll see down on my fleet fuel, that's an estimate for price per gallon at approximately $3.15. And our average usage of about 10,000 gallons a year. So that netted a $49 decrease. Electricity also went off of my a review of the usage over the past 3 years. And so I was able to reduce that to $2,000. Same thing for the building fuel. So went through with what I could to make those reductions. And of course, it's hard to offset the increases in some of those wage lines. One thing that I opted to present to you folks this year would be to replace the second SRO position that's been a permanent part-time position and make that a full-time position. Part of that is Jamie Balint resigned last June. And so we had hired him back in 2018 specific for this position. And the way it worked is he would work full-time through the school year. And those hours were reimbursed to the town. And then in the summertime, he would do some things for us with investigations and property management and those sorts of things. And the idea is because of the retirement system, he was limited on the number of hours he could do. So the bulk of it was used during the school year, and we get some hours from him through the summertime. So after he resigned, we attempted to fill that position. We found somebody that recently retired that we were pretty excited to take on board. But the rules for the retirement system have changed. The number of hours that they can work have been reduced. And they are now, It used to be 1,664 hours and now it's 1,352. And so school's in session for 36 weeks, which is equivalent to 1,440 hours. So even if we did take them on, that'd be reduced to 32 hours a week during the school year and virtually no hours in the summertime to take on a retiree. Ultimately, this individual candidate couldn't do it because of the reduction of those numbers, just financially couldn't make it work. So that kind of fell apart going into this, that all happened right before the school year started. And so right now I have one of my patrolmen essentially on loan into the school because I felt it was important to have that coverage there. So as I went through my budget, and of course, like I said, a lot of that's all in the payroll sections. I decided to tweak it on my little spreadsheet here just to see what it would look like. And so part of the advantage that we have with it being for the school resource officer position is those hours that he's in school would be reimbursed through this school safety grant. And so looking back at our expenditures the last couple of years, so last school year, we billed for 51,796. And in the 22-23 school year, we billed for 47,950. So I used 50,000 as basically a placeholder. And so I have a salary sheet, I think is towards the back of your packet, second or third to last page. You can see how I'm sort of accounting for it. I put a place marker wage rate at basically a veteran, couple of years on, salary range, just to kind of have that illustration. It gives you that total at the bottom of the column. And then you'll see that I just reduced it by the 50,000 reimbursement that we get for those school hours. And that's how I ended up with that net of the 1.267558. And once I calculated that, I then looked at the overtime and part-time wage lines and was able to reduce those. So we have historically budgeted the part-time wages at 1,500 hours. So those have been reduced by 500 hours to 1,000. And I reduced the overtime line from 1,400 to 1,200. I anticipate that could potentially end up going down a little bit more. It would be the first time we had that much full-time help. And of course, the advantage for us is we have the school year reimbursed to us, and then we have full-time coverage through our busy summer months. And in a sense, that's what we'd be on the hook for. So again, it would help me exponentially in the summertime for reducing that overtime and the shift coverage stuff that we want to do. And I know just a few years ago, Paul had asked, if we add that 13th position, and he asked me if I felt comfortable for the next few years. And I said, as far as I can tell, yeah. And now this SRO position has kind of forced it upon me to really evaluate that, but it's also a great opportunity because we get basically 2/3 of that reimbursed to us. So that's what this budget has. And the reality is the original budgets that I did before contemplating this addition and making those reductions in those overtime and part-time lines, I reduced my request by about 1 percentage point. Not drastic, but if we get that extra coverage, I think it might be worthwhile. So short of that, I'll entertain any questions you have on any particular lines, but.
Is that SRO position that's solely for the elementary school?
So they rotate and spend equal time between the two schools.
Oh,
Part of the thought process to that is that you want those kids to learn and know the SRO. So when they do transition up in high school, they already have a relationship and a rapport. And so we try to balance that out as equally as possible, but.
But you have one in each school.
One in each
At
school.
the same time.
At the same time.
But you swap. them.
Right. There might be the occasional meeting type thing that has to happen, but generally if one's going to the other one knows and goes to the other one and they work that and sort that out
But
between
you've been
themselves.
short one school, but you've been able to fill the other school with that same position, with that same person.
Right. So I got my full-time SRO now, Officer Davis, and then I've used Officer Fellows from basically loaning him from patrol. And the idea is if I do have something come up or a real gap in coverage, I'm going to have to pull him from the school. But so far we've been able to work it. I felt it was a priority to make sure it was filled. But even going forward, like we've been with that finally being full staff this summer and having that 13th person, the coverage has gone a lot better. If you look at the current budget stuff, we've done really well in the overtime line. It's because I can fill by moving people instead of just having a vacancy and having to fill that with overtime. And of course, I've been up here before. The part-timers hours, they're not working like they used to. We used to have that, I think, up to 2,400 hours, and we used to use them. And now they're just not working as much and not as available. So we're relying heavily on that overtime thing. And so again, having a full-time position through the summer months when we really, really need it would be excellent to have.
Okay.
So it would just be transitioning that officer into that SRO position or,
So currently I have Jamie there.
Yeah.
I'm going to seek reimbursement for his time, which will help us on our default budget. And I wouldn't be looking to fill this, of course, the vote wouldn't happen until March, and I wouldn't want to necessarily change 2/3 of the school year. So if it goes through in March, we'd be looking to hire towards the end of the school year, get them trained up so that by the time school rolls around, they're ready to go into.
Go into
school.
that position.
Correct.
you're comfortable with the setup now, right?
Yes. Yes,
And that's why you have the SRO to be determined.
correct.
Okay. You've definitely done your homework and it's looking easier to read and to understand when the way you have it spelled out. so.
Yeah, that's the way my brain works. I can't do math quick in my head.
You need it.
That makes two of us. Okay. Any other questions for the chief as far as this budget is concerned right now?
No, not at the moment. There's a lot of analyzing. I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot
You
to
know,
look at.
I got to compliment both you guys. I mean, you did an amazing job
Yeah.
putting together a very, very detailed breakdown of it trying,
Very much.
I'm gonna say, trying to explain what you're, what you're going for. And it makes it easier on our end.
Sure. And just like Kelly said, if you got any questions to come, as you do review that, I have a very, very briefest of explanations for each line as in part of your packet, but if you have any questions about what even, like we refer to these different brand names of different things and you don't know what that's for, certainly call, I can explain what those things are and so you can put the proper value of whether it's worth the money and all that.
Makes it easier for us to go through the notes and go through everything and make check marks and make questions so
Yeah.
that we can, the next time we see you, we can
Have it all good.
ask a little bit more questions.
Sure.
But as far as now, it looks like it's really good.
Get that one.
Thank you,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
sir.
Thank you, chief.
You want to go to the front of your books?
Mhm.
I'll go through a few
Audio.
of the real small budgets until we're tired and ready to move forward. But if we want to start with assessing is. So Bob and I sat down and went through the assessing budget. Really the only additions is the change in wages. And that just reflects Rob's salary and Laura's hourly.
Okay.
Uh,
With any merit?
Yes. So what it did is, the individual department heads, I told them to go ahead and figure it at the 4%. But I know that the board had wanted an alternative of 3%. So I have a spreadsheet that Laura and finance is putting together that shows you the 1% difference for every budget, and it's in a vertical spreadsheet like Todd just showed you.
Yeah.
So it's easier to follow along that the department head giving you an either or sort of option. I was trying to make it a little bit easier to follow and cleaner. So the budget you'll see from the department heads reflect 4%. I will show you the spreadsheet that will show you the 3%. I will tell you right now, it's about $52,000 for the whole time. That 1%, that 1%. But I will get that as soon as every single budget is in and we verify that spreadsheet, I will get it to you before you make any decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Like I said, on the assessing, the only difference, level funded, everything.
Other than wages. Okay. Any other questions on that right now? If not, we can move to audio visual.
Yeah. Gonna take a while for this.
See. Level funded?
Yeah.
Can we approve it?
No,
Yes, I think we can actually get one on the books.
I'll make a motion. We approve the audio visual number 4199. Operating budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For
$2,000.
For $2,000, in the amount of $2,000.
You,
It's empty.
Nobody gets benefits.
Nobody gets that.
okay. Skip benefits. Go right into, yeah, 4131 Budget Committee.
Changed.
So, it's unchanged. We'll tell you that we had a recent, large changeover in the budget committee. We got our first meeting in last night. Setups, structure, but the board hadn't really had time to look at anything or do anything at the time of budget preparation. And I worked with the budget committee. I did this one last year. So I carried it forward this year. Their expenses, are reflective of last year's expenses. They haven't changed. The real expense is the transcriber, part-time, transcriber that we utilize to transcribe minutes. Same one that transcribes for planning and zoning board, so.
Okay, yeah.
So this one, are we good with this one?
I think.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead with this one as well.
Guys, at the other end?
Yeah, I'll make a
Good.
motion to approve the budget for the budget committee.
Of the amount,
$3,201 unchanged from last year's budget and the year before, for that matter.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Building, okay, conservation, okay, conservation, 4612.
So this one has. I need to make a change for you folks, as a result of a meeting I had with the Conservation Commission Chair.
Mm-hmm.
So they had, if you look at line 184, the big reflective change, aside from the small change in part-time wages,
Mm-hmm.
you see contracted services jumped. quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
They had two special projects. One was, it was, some aggressive, these tree islands. If you look under the justification sheet.
So looking here.
Oh,
I got it,
that,
184.
Yeah, so you see that there's,
Mowing.
it says, remove tree island in the field at Gilman Pond, trim branches from trees around remaining islands, branches from trees around the field to facilitate cleaner. But basically, they got some overgrowth and they have some invasive plant vegetation that's growing around these tree islands. So they're gonna have those cut back and trimmed up. They put it out and received several quotes on it. But I met with the chairman this morning and they have funding available this year. And we have a little bit available this year. So we discussed it and I told him that it was a much better idea to get those projects out of the way this year instead of trying to get it into next year's budget, given how sensitive the budget is for increase. So we are gonna take out the 8,000. We're actually gonna take out everything but the original 3,850 from last.
So it'll just
So
be a
that's gonna be
carryover.
3,850 is carried. Okay. So that's going back to a budget of 22,945.
No,
No,
No, because there's a few other increases. But. Yeah. Mhm.
Math on that.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a difference in the part-time and there's a difference in dues and fees increase. Travel mileage increase and easement monitoring
Deduct.
increase.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
250.
He's doing it right now.
Give me a total.
I come up with 23,247. As the bottom line.
I have 23,247 as well.
All right,
I
I'll
am
make-
comfortable with that as long as the fee is taken out,
yeah,
like you just described. Instead of the 15,250 being a 3,850, 850, which that line item stays the same from the nets of default budget.
Yes.
so I'll make a motion. We approve the amended budget for the conservation at $23,247.
You have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay.
What do you got?
Change. 4290.
Okay. 290.
Right.
Okay.
No wages, there's money in there for,
The emergency
grants
there. Yep.
and preparation and response to emergencies.
I'll make a motion that we approve the emergency management at $11,003 for the 2025 season.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
To interest short term.
That's an easy one.
That's a big one.
There it is.
I'll make a motion
that's
to
huge.
approve the budget for short-term interest of $1.
No. I'll second that motion.
Do we need to discuss this?
Oh, there it is.
easy.
At least we can laugh.
That's, this. is
Okay.
one.
Is
Keep open.
there's motion
Yes, and I second
and
it.
you second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Legal.
Yep.
41.
Yep. Yep.
This is also unchanged.
So
Nope.
it's unchanged.
No, it's
police.
So, the police prosecutor is under contract.
Mhm.
Last year, the contract was just 2,000,
Mhm.
but so the 54,750 reflects 2 years ago. Even
Okay.
though we have contractual increases, so we've had to come up with that money. So the 61,2 reflects his current contract.
Okay.
And that's with only a 2%.
2% increase?
Capped increase this year.
Yes, 2%.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? On legal?
I'll make a motion. We accept the legal operating budget of $145,418.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
That's,
Patriotic?
which one?
Patriotic purposes.
Last one.
Okay, we'll do three.
It's 45.
Of course, this was the last year's default budget as far as that was concerned. And
So.
the increase is the actual cost of the fireworks.
So, the default, that 12,750
Mhm.
was actually only half of one show because we had prepaid a contract.
Okay. Okay.
So the 20,000 in this year's budget only reflects 4th of July.
That's only one.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is I have the contracts for the fireworks already. We're going to pay for so Old Home Week's fireworks is only 11,000.
Mhm.
But 4th of July is 20 grand. Yeah,
Hold
it
on,
goes-
Home
it
Week
goes-
was
it goes up.
11,000?
Yeah, so we left the 11,000 out. That we can pay that contract
Mhm.
out of this year instead of trying to carrying it into the 5,
Okay.
because that's a huge increase.
That is a huge increase.
So,
Because the 24 expenditure was 28.5 for that line item.
yes,
So
Again.
8,500 more than what we're budgeting for next year, but you're saying you prepaid a portion of next year's contract?
yeah, so.
Yeah.
Because we're basically booking out, they're trying to get 3 and 4 year contracts. We haven't signed a long-term contract, but we've basically committed every year. Because we're at a problem, every town is vying for that 4th of July spot.
Sure.
So 4th of July is covered with the 20 grand, but we prepaid the lower amount, the
11,000.
for Old Home Week.
All right, so I'll make a motion to patriotic purposes, to approve and go with a budget of $21,190.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So, replays.
Yeah. 360. Yeah, no, that hasn't changed in a very long time. Does this also reflect the one that we
Yeah.
we
did
canceled? We
take
canceled
away
one
one?
this year.
Yeah, we canceled.
But we added one.
Oh, they would- Oh, all right, all right. I thought there was
So there would
one.
have been two.
Good thing we didn't keep that street light.
The old one, we were paying.
Right.
So they discontinued the old one, but started billing us for the new one.
Oh, okay, all right. Let's see, so
We got a
that's,
better light.
We'll make a motion, we approve the street lighting budget of $33,500 for the 2020.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Right. That'll be good for tonight.
Yeah.
And we'll. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay. Selectmen reports, Drew.
So we had our first meeting with the budget committee last night, and it was basically only to elect officers and kind of lay down the ground rules. I made the faux pas of volunteering to be the vice chair, which I am not allowed to be. So we'll have to elect a vice chair the next meeting.
Did you pick a chair?
We did. So Beth is the chair.
Oh, good, right,
Yeah, that's it.
very good. Richard,
The milfoil season is pretty much over except for a final inspection, which we hope will not show any problems. And hazardous waste is in the autumn season. We had an excellent turnout to make use of that capability on the 14th at the Alton landfill. And I think we did one on the 20th in Wolfboro, but I don't know how that went. And that is going to get us close to being wrapped up for this year in that department.
thank you.
I have nothing to add. We got meetings coming up this week and next week and
Planning board went well, a couple new things coming. The ZAC committee meeting I had, I think this is our third one. That's a really great committee. All the people, we had a good, we have a good core group and good discussion. I like that committee.
So it's going well.
Yeah.
The ZBA will be meeting next Thursday, and next Wednesday, there will be a meeting for the water bandstand for a wrap up for the season and discussion for next year. One thing I just wanted to bring up in selectmen reports about the swap shop, just to do a little update. The last time we met at our selectmen meeting, we talked about a 6-month period of the swap shop, but we didn't describe as far as to when that would start. And that's going to start only after the DPW was able to go to the transfer station, actually do the grading, actually move the container, level the container, make sure it's safe, level, and make sure the barricades are put in place, proper signage is put in place, and that everything is cleared to go as far as the building is concerned. Once we know that that's all in a safe position, then we'll need the list of volunteers, what the time schedules will be, and so on and so forth. So we have a ways to go before this will take place. But as soon as these things move forward, then we can move forward closer to a date as to actually when this will take place. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing I wanted to let the board know during my conversation with the moderator, Gene Young, he did mention that they will have ballot counting again before the elections. We'll need selectmen present, so just to give you the heads up, put it on the calendar, it's gonna be October 29th. They didn't pick a specific time, but they believe it's gonna probably start at around 9 o'clock, like the same as last election. And then they will have voter training for volunteers and stuff that evening, starting at 6. The other thing I wanted to bring up to the board, and see if I could get a consensus from the board. We have a new situation that's been arising pretty regularly in town. So I've been approached by many commercial businesses that have had to use or asked to use the boat launch for dock and wave break construction activities. This has never really surfaced a lot in the past, only in specific situations, because they utilize the fishing game or the old Downing's Landing on a regular basis. Well, the state has now put a stop to that completely for all businesses or barges. So they do not have that available to themselves. Currently, our old policy that it just stated and it states on the sign that commercial use of the boat ramp is by permission of the board only. In our ordinance, it specifies the Board of Selectmen or the police department. There's been a couple of unique situations that have arisen where I've been out at the ramp and stopped people and talked to them. It's never been contentious. Everybody's been very agreeable and wants to work with the town and doing nothing that would damage our property or the ability for others to use the ramp. With that said, when this surfaces, I wanted to find out whether the board would be okay with passing on some limited authority to me to handle situations like that in a timely manner if they arise between the 2-week meetings, on the conditions that if a business requests to use the ramp for a short duration, talking 15-20 minutes, which is what it has been.
I've witnessed that, I've watched.
And that, you know, obviously no equipment that is going to damage the asphalt or the ramp be utilized, and then it be done during off hours and not any peak weekends, or hours or holidays. If the board would be comfortable with me giving that limited amount of permission, as to not bog down our meetings every 2 weeks with multiple requests, and also delay residents from getting the work done and getting it completed.
All right. The only question I have is, has DOT given really an explanation as to why they wouldn't allow certain times for the commercial vehicles to come in and out of there? Is it because of time constraints, or is it because of the size of the property? Are they given an explanation?
The only explanation I've heard, it's not, so it's owned by Fishing Game.
I know.
And Fishing Game is strictly, you know, their funding and everything else is for recreational purposes only in fishing. So they're just the only reason that they've given it is that it's all commercial use is prohibited from there.
But they're not given really, and they're just saying that's the way it is and that's the way it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Is basically what they're saying. So basically, we've always been on their side to help them when they needed it. But when we have town residents or businesses that want to do something, they're not willing to help.
No, they didn't seem to be.
Yeah, that's so typical.
So if I understand this, Fishing Game is saying no,
Yes,
no commercial.
no commercial.
So what are you asking? That you can give permission to commercial?
They want to utilize our ramp.
Next to
Our
Shibley's.
race, okay.
Next to Shibley's.
So they weren't using it before because basically ours is quite a bit steeper.
Yeah,
And they don't, you know, it's not as accommodating. So they were regularly going to the other side, and that's why it wasn't a frequent request to us. But since this happened in the last month and a half, I've received more calls than I can remember in the last 4 years. So I'm just, because of our policy in place, obviously it's to have a business plan out 2 weeks to deliver 4 pilings for a dock. It's becoming a nightmare for them, and I don't want the board to be bogged down with, 4, 5 or 6 coordination requests.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
The one concern that pops into my head though is they all have insurance, and is the town named as additionally insured if they're gonna be using the town ramp for commercial purposes?
I would say we should do what we do with the contractors in town, is you get a copy of their general liability.
General liability
And that-
insurance.
that
And then they
covers-
can use it
And
on
then
a,
they keep it on file.
Keep it on
And keep it
file.
on file. Also, I think it's important that, yes, I agree with giving you the permission to set a schedule with them. And when they call and do anything, but to do it in times that most people aren't using the ramp. Because we know how bottlenecked it gets in there, and it gets really tight, even for them if they try to back in heavy equipment to go through and down the ramp. Early morning, late afternoons, things like that, spring, fall, off-season times when they still have, I understand what you're saying. We don't know exactly what day, but if they gave notice within a few days of what time, I would have no issue with that. I just think that the fishing game is being unfair.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
I'm good with
if
you as long as you get the
if we
info.
consult with our insurance company, they'll give guidelines on what would be an appropriate level of coverage. I would think, as well as, on a cord form, all the right wording, additionally insured, because I think we need to make sure we're adequately protected. So,
Absolutely.
Okay.
You don't need to vote on that, it's general consensus.
Consensus along the
Okay.
board.
Yep.
Okay with passing on that authority
I-
under those
yeah.
conditions.
Under those conditions, yes.
yep,
Yeah, as long as we're insured, they're insured. We definitely do it in times that don't interfere with the general public.
Just
I think
be able
that's
to
important.
hold someone accountable if there is damage done to that boat ramp, that's all.
Okay. Anything else on?
No.
Wow. All right, yeah.
Approval of the minutes, August 27, 2024, public session.
Any issues with these gentlemen?
Yeah.
I make a motion, we approve the August 27, 2024 public session minutes.
second,
All in favor?
aye,
Aye. Okay, August 27, 2024, non-public session.
Ryan?
There should be one, keeping number 2 sealed.
I make a motion, we approve the August 27, 2024 non-public session minutes, releasing number 1 only.
And keeping
And
sealed number
keeping-
2.
Yeah, and keeping number 2 sealed. I didn't think we had to do that.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Okay, September 9th, 2024, public session.
I'll make a motion, we approve the September 9th, 2024 public session minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda? We don't
We
have.
don't have one. I was
We don't
trying to
have
find
one
that.
this evening.
Consent to that.
TA report.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always.
We knew it was too quick. Way too, that was too quick. That is. I saw that.
Situation that arose became a little bit more frequent last week. We had to sit down and talk about, but I think it's important to bring the board up to speed. So this is the police chief want to talk about the situation where New Durham's police chief resigned.
Yeah,
Quickly effective Friday evening, and the police department has absolutely no police officers.
That's gonna reflect the budget.
So right now, New Durham has been working with the chief, and they're paying detail for coverage.
Okay.
Today, so I'll let Todd continue with that
Yeah.
discussion.
So
Just to
Go ahead.
give.
this began back, I think in the springtime, they lost some folks and needed some help with some coverage. And so part of our mutual aid agreement is that we went over there, but of course, if you do extended time like that, you do charge a detail rate. So we've had our officers specifically designated over there. We're getting reimbursed for their hours. I'm sorry, they're paying direct for their hours. And also we get reimbursed for cruiser charges. So kind of a win-win for us. They get the coverage and so we go through the summer. We've been doing it for the bulk of the summertime. A couple of other agencies have also supported them in that. And then, like you said, the police chief in New Durham is now retired. Kind of came in, at least to us, pretty last minute. And so the issue is that they have one officer that's still on the department, but they're unavailable for service until at least November. So realistically, there's no police officers working. I was contacted by the town administrator. The governing board over there wanted to execute an extended authority agreement with us to continue our assistance in that coverage. The way these extended authority agreements typically work under the statute, it describes being between a police chief and a police chief, that we execute that thing and then we can either mutually or separately decline to continue that arrangement. It's been kind of put out there into the public that it has to be police chiefs. That says that in the statute. My interpretation of it, as well as the town council, I contacted him just to check myself on this, is that, the authority I have is vested in me by you because you've appointed me to this position. If I'm no longer here, the role and responsibility, and there's no other police officers, the role and responsibility for law enforcement would lie with the board. So I feel comfortable executing that extended authority agreement. And even without the agreement in place, under the statute, and there's an emergency over there, we're still going to go. So this allows us to help provide patrol coverage versus simply responding only to emergencies, taking our people, our staff over there without the compensation. So it really protects the taxpayer in Alton, while also trying to provide a service to those residents over there that right now don't have any police service. That's been my position. As to my knowledge, none of the other departments that were formerly assisting are assisting anymore. So it's been a bit of a task where we've covered some shifts. We can't cover them all. And the reality is we're trying to be neighborly and supportive because we serve the public. It's not just Alton, we serve the public. That's my stance on it. And that's why I agreed to do it. And that's where we're at. I wanted to bring you guys up to speed. They are trying to work on getting the issue resolved. I know that they've posted for the chief's position now. Timeline of that, I don't know, can't predict. But I'm going to be monitoring the situation too, because part of the issue is they also have no administrative staff there now either, which changes a little bit for us because part of the dynamic that I'm dealing with is it's a separate county, which means there's different jails, different court. I can't task or task our prosecutor to do it. I got a message out now to who I believe is prosecuting for them to see what would happen if we end up in a situation where we have something to prosecute. So it's far from clean and perfect for sure, but that's my stance on it, as I feel it's important that we do help our neighbors the best that we can by having this agreement that I'm signing with the board versus another police chief. That's the rationale behind it. Town council agrees with that. That's where we're at. And if at any point it's not going in our benefit, then I can always discontinue. We could just stay in our own town, and of course, we'll respond if there is a real
Are there
Mm-hmm.
any
emergency.
other surrounding towns that are assisting in any way?
Not to my knowledge. And the reality is, so they reached out to the Stratford County as well as state police, and they just can't dedicate anybody to do patrol in their area. So the idea is state ultimately would come, you just don't know when, because they could be down past Dover or wherever out of Troop A. So they really want to have somebody that's going to get there in a timely fashion versus relying on that for coverage, which is why they're willing to pay and compensate us to have somebody dedicated over there. But again, I can't bear that whole burden for the whole police department.
Does state police come in if they're needed?
Right, and that's
So they have-
basically what it is, but the idea is they don't know, they're not gonna have anybody like patrolling in the area.
Right,
So
I get it.
So the response times would be pretty significant
Right.
is the concern. And like I said, this allows us to actually put on the extra staff to focus on that. The benefit to us too, of course, is there's another Alton officer out. So if we have something going on they can come over and help us too.
Right.
So it's a win-win in that situation. I just wanted the board to be aware of what's happening and they're sorting out whatever they're doing on that end. And again, this is not etched in stone. It's not 100% locked in that I have to do this. I'm doing it out of goodwill and in good faith. And then if for some reason it's not really working out, like this whole administrative, like I don't want to burden the Alton taxpayer with processing work for New Durham stuff. I want to keep them separated as best we can. And so that's where we're at. It's kind of a fluid situation at this point. I just wanted you guys to understand where I'm coming from.
As
And if you
long as
have,
it's not taxing you or the, gentlemen in your department, ladies in your department, I mean, I don't really.
Yeah.
It's a win-win situation, it sounds
Yeah.
like, as long as it's not selling you guys short, that's
Right.
fine.
Because you can keep up with it.
yeah, and it's all
Until they have their own coverage,
right.
and they're working on that now, they're trying to work that out, correct?
Correct. Correct.
And this has been going on since, what'd you say, early spring?
Yes, but the difference being that they at least had the chief there. So like one of the dynamics is we take on an investigation. We would normally just take that information, give it over and they do all the follow-up on it.
Yep.
And now I don't have anybody to hand that to unless we do it with state. So those details I'm trying to sort out. And again, I'm reach out to just to figure out even the prosecution where I send an arrest file. So we're working on the details of that. And again, if I get to a point where it's a real solid roadblock, I'll back down
Okay.
on that support and we'll still do the rendering aid, meaning, if there's a significant event over there, we're gonna go. I just mean us voluntarily going over there to help give them coverage. And so that's where we're at. I don't know if anybody has any
And
questions
town council's in agreement on your interpretation of
of the statute.
the execution of that statute.
Correct.
No, sounds good.
I just wanted to reiterate, just mainly for the taxpayers who are listening, that by him, that the town of New Durham is paying full detail rate, which that doesn't just include the officers' salaries, but they're paying a cruiser fee and an admin fee for our admin time and any associated retirements, taxes. So they're bearing the full cost and this isn't taxing us from a financial standpoint.
For our taxpayers,
Yes.
for our town. Thank you for sharing that.
And it is voluntary, like these officers are signing up for the shifts voluntarily to do that coverage. So we're not mandating anybody to do anything. It's all on that voluntary basis. So mindful of not burning out our own people out.
Right.
too. Right.
Okay. As long as you feel as though that you can cover both and feel comfortable with that.
For the time being, I mean, we're right into the first week, sort of sorting it out. I have a meeting, I think, going on right now. I would anticipate something further might come along that helps me figure out exactly what we're gonna do. So again, very fluid and if it doesn't really work or make sense to us, certainly
Okay.
back down. And again, we're not gonna leave New Durham hanging. Like we will respond to something if there's a true emergency.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know.
Thanks.
Thanks for your help. Okay, no requests for appointments this evening. Okay, public input, 5 minutes per person on anything government, town, or business.
Joan Blackwood. I wasn't going to talk about this until last, but it's a timeline that you just talked about. So I talked to Seth Garland today, and he said he had some free time, where he felt like he had some downtime this fall. And it might be better than spring. So, I mean, I know that we can't do anything for 6 months. I know that, and I've known it for many, many months, but it might be a better time, but he needs some directive from you guys to say, can you look at it? Because I've touched base with Scott Simons as well. He has no idea. He says, you guys are his boss, so he doesn't have anything that he knows to do right now. Okay. And I just wanted you to know who I am a little bit. I know I have 5 minutes. Who I am and who you're dealing with. I was here Monday watering before, the new garden went in. And I was here a little bit after 7 o'clock when a gentleman came down the stairs, an older gentleman, probably my age. And about halfway down the stairs, I saw him fall. And or stumble, more or less. He was trying to avoid a branch from the lilac tree. I didn't notice it. I'm short. He was tall. And by the time he stopped, he was facing the other way. He was facing looking up. If he had fallen, you know, and you might say, well, you know, I just, things happened at the swap shop. And unfortunately, lawsuits occur. I was a witness to that. I wouldn't have wanted to be. What I did was I broke off the branch, went home, got the loppers, cut back that area there. Anywhere near would cause a problem. So you're dealing with someone who's very aware of lawsuits and does not ever want something like that that happened at the swap shop ever to happen again. I also am here to invite you to an October 17th meeting at the Rotary Club. I have invited Martin Thornton, who is the person who runs the swap shop in Lee, New Hampshire. He, among all the ones that I talked to, 12 different swap shops, he alone stood out to me. And I know that Richard Shea believes he's a good man too. He has 30 volunteers. He is a volunteer. He has a book that's, I think, 30 pages long on how to run a swap shop effectively, safely, and how to train volunteers. And he loves it. They love it. And so this meeting that would be at the Rotary would inform you. I have asked Scott Simons if he would go. I may have convinced him to go. I'm not sure. But he could ask any question. I've told Scott, I said, you have a concern, you come to me. I now have a committee of 5. But you have a concern, you come to us. We will do the very best we can to make sure that this is the safest and best and, you know, swap shop around. And I know that you haven't, some of you haven't been for it, but I really want you to know who you're dealing with here, that I will do my best to have everything in order by the time we're up and running. And incidentally, Seth said that there would be a small road going. We need a turnaround because you get a trailer down there, someone's gone to the dump. Please let us have a turnaround, or that would be a real disaster if people go down and can't back out of there. So also some parking. That's necessary to have some safe parking. So I don't ask for much. I do ask for the 7x40 Connex because he said they were debating as to what Connex they would give us. I want the old one back. At least that's a big one. Okay. So forgive me for, I hope I haven't taken the time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Public input? Seeing none? I make a motion to enter into a non-public meeting per RSA 91-A:3(2). Under D. D and I.
Second.
No, we do.
Drew Carter, aye.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
and yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
We're back.